Wishing a good day to all my viewers. Welcome to Dialogue. Before we introduce our guest, let me talk about one simple data. Globally, every year, more than 11 million people die because of one cause. Can you imagine? Maybe you all be thinking about pandemic, poverty. No. There is a hidden global enemy that we all have to face. That's it, illicit drugs. And now we have United Nations Officer Drug and Crimes Programming Officer, Mr. Billy, to talk us about the international policies on drug usage and how to prevent it. Sir, it's my pleasure to welcome to our channel, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, and thanks so much for having me here as well.
So let's start from the data. It was said that in 2020, 280 million people have died due to drug usage. That was the data by UNODC. So what is the situation right now?
Thank you so much once again for this very, very important question. Indeed, the war drug issue is a big problem for governments, for societies, and now, indeed, this has become a prevalent issue among young people, and there are many reasons for that. We can discuss this a little bit later. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, is, of course, the guardian of the conventions on drugs and supports member states in implementing drug policies at the national level. As I mentioned, is UNODC, so it's a member states-based organizations. We have been supporting member states in many different ways. And India is one of those countries, obviously. The world drug problem is a challenging one, not easy for any state, and not even possible for any state to address alone. I think there needs to be a comprehensive approach that brings many different stakeholders of the society together, because there are many actually stakeholders within the society that they can support governments. Some people find this hard to believe, but we know this to be true in India. There are many civil society organizations doing incredible work in supporting governments to address the world drug problem. But indeed, it does remain a prevalence. It remains a big issue that we all have to address and to tackle. We're making progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
What do you think as the root cause for young people to get attracted more into these activities, like maybe the social background of the country or maybe their own social background? So what may be the factors which attract them?
I think it's probably not as easy to say that we're losing the battle against drugs. It's probably because the issue of drugs and even the understanding and reporting of drugs is very complex in itself. There are many aspects that might suggest that the war drug problem is becoming more prevalent, whereby perhaps it could be that there's lack of data to better understand what is happening in terms of addressing the war drug problem worldwide, for instance. So yes, it's true that there are many things that are being done, and I think Vendor is a good. I'm sure you're aware of this. Is one of those good solutions in India, and there are many such projects around the world. But I think one of the challenges that we face that maybe makes it more difficult to address the war drug problems rather, is that the issues that lead to people getting into drug use are not reducing. They're not, and we know many of those issues. It could be lack of opportunities within the communities. It could be unemployment within young people. It could be poverty within the communities. These problems are very interconnected with the usage of drugs, especially among young people. So until we address that, we are not going to be able to win the challenges that we face with the world drug problem. I think we have to do all of this at the same time in order to make progress that can be visible within communities.
So when we talk about India, we have so many rules, regulations. So what is your suggestion on the enforcement level? Like we have so many rules and regulations, we have multiple cases, multiple agencies like narcotics and many other agencies to probe. But what is your take on the law enforcement aspect? How should we make changes to make it more strengthened?
So I think one of the main challenges around the world, not just for India, and actually I cannot speak for India, but one of the issues around this issue is that the prosecution of the organized criminal activities is not sufficient. One has to admit that it's not sufficient. So therefore, organized criminal groups continue to get away with the acts of drawing, especially young people, into using drugs, which lead to them becoming part of organized criminal groups. So they engage in the other criminal activities within the communities. So therefore, exacerbating the problem in itself. So taking it, if you will, taking it away from the drug issue to becoming an organized crime issue to becoming a criminal justice issue. So you see how these issues are interconnected. So I think one of the areas where we can work more, where governments can work more, is in the area of prosecution of criminal activities in this regard.
Many countries have legalized so many drugs. That's maybe for the medicinal purpose or maybe for any other reasons. But what do you think that if we legalize one thing, will the demand go down?
Very important question, which I think the partners to be better respond to this question are the very countries that are putting these practices into place, right? So UNODC, as a member states-based organization, our role is to support states in implementing drug policies at the national level, right? How national governments implement that usually is to their discretion. Now, we have seen a number of cases where governments have taken different approaches in the interest of their own communities, right? So in that case, obviously, UNODC is always there to help and to support them in implementing those policies and to advise them as much as possible to the risks that might be associated with that, but also to the opportunities that would be associated to, for instance, taking different approaches. So that's what we're doing, and we are seeing different approaches within member states, but we're seeing very productive discussions as well within the Commission of Narcotic Drugs, where member states openly also discuss these issues, the challenges that they face by taking one approach or the other approach, which I think is very healthy, a healthy discussion to have, because that also informs the other member states that might be thinking of taking a similar approach to better understand whether to do that or not.
How should we treat children in these social issues? Like, how can we make them aware from their very small age? So what would be your suggestion on how strategically we must move on to next generation in these social issues?
Very, very important question, once again, pertaining to the very conference that we're attending today, that today's young people should be called screenagers, not teenagers, but screenagers, because of the amount of information, the time that they spend in front of the screens on their phones. I think there's a lot that can be done there, as an educational means to educate these young people, also through the social media, so a positive use of social media, because they spend a lot of time there. I think you, as a network, as my previous speaker also mentioned, I think you're doing good service by taking on these initiatives and informing people about this. It's not easy to get, reliable sourced information also to young people. So I hope that young people are following you on Instagram. I hope you are on Instagram because they are there. I think we can do more in educating these young people, not just at school. Schools have to do that, but I think there needs to be a lot of education outside school. And again, Venda is a good example of how that is happening. So we can do more of that. But I think it takes me back to the same point that I made before, which is there are social and economic structural issues within the communities that need to be addressed in order to make a difference in order to be successful in addressing the war drug problem, also in the context of young people. So provide more job opportunities to young people, right? Give them something to do. Let them go to school, obviously, right? Address gender inequality so that girls can also go to school whenever that they want to go to school. It doesn't matter, whether their social status at home and so on, cultural dimensions and so on. And address poverty within the communities. A lot of this is for the governments to do, but there's a lot also that communities can do itself.
Every international platforms, climatic change is being discussed as a hot topic. It's because it's a need of the hour. So do you think that it is high time we consider, we means India or maybe any other countries, treat this drug issue as the major concern?
I think this is a thing that should have started being discussed like many years ago. To be quite honest, we are quite late in discussing that. I think again the discussion is taking place at a very slow pace, and to be honest, not enough. So I think the environmental movement, especially young environmental movement, is a good example of how successful one can be when you create a network and a community and a movement around a topic. And I think it's high time that a similar approach is taken also on the issue of drugs, especially within young people. We would need a public-private partnership approach to addressing the war drug problem, to be quite honest. The government has to play its role. Civil society organizations have to play their role. The private sector have to play their role. And therefore, young people have to play their role as well. And therefore, also comes the role of the family, right? The family as an institution within the community also will continue to play an important role within the communities. And we're happy to have also family skills program within UNODC that also strengthened the resilience.
What is your take on the action taken against dark web criminal activities, and why is it happening again and again? What can we do in order to reduce them?
You're absolutely right. A lot of the crimes are going into the darknet. And that's because it's difficult to monitor, it's difficult to control. It's a no man's land, basically. So one can do most of the things that you cannot do in a normal net, obviously. And that's why many organized criminal groups, including drug traffickers, are also operating there. I think there needs to be more regulations when it comes to the internet and the use of internet. But I think, again, there needs to be a lot of education for young people, right? Because I think it's all about prevention in the end. I think we need to do more to making sure that young people are not attracted to those things. I think that's where most of the effort should go. And obviously, that requires more funding, more resources, which we are not seeing enough of. Resources going to preventive measures is not enough. It's a drop in the ocean, so therefore cannot get us where we want to go. So I think it's prevention, so that at least we make sure that those young people do not even end up in a darknet, which is a very dangerous place for them to be.
There are so many celebrities who act in films, who maybe social media influencers, who spread a wrong message in by endorsing some advertisement which showcase negative aspects like drug smuggling or drug dealing or something. So what is your take? How responsible should be social media influencers or actors while they are dealing with advertisements like which in a way can influence young generation?
Right now, as you correctly mentioned, some of them endorse, let's say the negative aspect of drugs and crime that we are talking about. It's interesting because in one of the youth consultations we had at UNODC, young people suggested that influencers and celebrities should be used as a voice to advocate for positive change, right? So I think if we're able to convince them, and there's a massive business around it, obviously, so that's where, again, the issue of public-private partnership makes a big difference. If we could make them advocate for the positive messages, because many young people look up to them, right, yes, as role models. So if they can play that positive role as a role model, I think we will have more opportunities at least to turn the curve.
Kerala, like how are we progressing in this, facing in this issue, or maybe any suggestions which you can put forward to our government, or any suggestions which you want to focus on how to work in Kerala on the basis of strategy, any strategy which you can give us as an advice, which UNODC can advise us.
Well, Karen, I'm not sure if I should be able to advise you what to do, but This is the second time I'm in Kerala. I have to say that what I have seen in Kerala is very encouraging. I have visited a number of schools where young people are interested to learn and to act. And I was very surprised after going through a series of schools talking to them about staying away from drug use prevention. Some of them made video materials, a kind of campaign for other young people. So it's very inspiring to see young people willing to learn and to be educated, and then taking a step further to actually put that into practice for the other peers. So I would say go out and do more of this, absolutely. I think there can be always more funding put into these activities. I think there's not enough of this. So if there is a possibility to put more resources into this, it will go a long way. But honestly, I think I'm very positive about what I've seen in Kerala. It could actually be a good model for other parts of India as well, even for some parts of the world. So do more of that, I think. I think if you continue to do this, more of this will be encouraging.
Also, there is a suggestion of adding such social lessons or social activities as a part of education curriculum. So what is your take on making our children aware about such social issues at their younger age and making them aware about the consequences? So what will be your take on all those suggestions and initiatives by the government?
In schools, as part of the curriculum, but also as side activities, because there's so much to cover, right, within the program itself. And there are other school programs within the curriculum. So I think it should be both. So it's not an either or approach. That's why I say I present this as a comprehensive approach.
Will you accept if our state government or maybe any other government bodies is ready for a collaboration?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we welcome any initiative from any government that wants to work with UNODC on addressing the World Drug Report. We're always sitting, waiting for these opportunities. So if there is an opportunity, we have the regional representative here at this forum who will represent UNODC. He will be our counterpart with the government. But even directly in India, I mean, I have got to know our colleagues from the Indian Permanent Mission in Vienna. We work with them directly. So if this offer is on the table, we are very much happy to take it on board and to work with the government of Kerala on addressing the World Drug Report. On addressing the World Drug problem itself.
As a channel, Asianet News has initiated a program like Say No to Drugs. So how do you think that a media can play a role in preventing all those?
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So as he said, it is a collective operation that has to go on to face this issue rather than placing it as an individual pocket. So it was lovely talking to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
ಇದು ಏಷ್ಯಾನೆಟ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಿ.
ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಏಷ್ಯಾನೆಟ್ ಸುವರ್ಣ ನ್ಯೂಸ್.